Good morning everyone and welcome to a new special episode because today we've got the Sony A6700. I can't say it, it's 6700. This is the new aps-c camera that just came out from Sony, and I think there is a lot to be said about this camera. So right now I want to cover a few essential points: ergonomics, autofocus, performance, and when and why get aps-c camera, or why not actually. That might be a better question. So if you're ready, let's get started right now. Alright, so the first thing that you need to know in terms of ergonomics is this camera is an update to the 6600, 6500. This is an aps-c sensor camera that has a really small form factor, and that's something I always appreciated. It has the same batteries as on the full frame, so let's say if you have another camera, this could be a great second camera you could throw in your bag super easily. But first, before I reveal more about the new design updates, let me know in the comments, do you have an aps-c camera or full frame? Would you want to get an aps-c camera, or do you prefer to go straight for a full frame? Because it's a question that I keep asking myself and it's still hard for me to answer it. So please let me know in the comments right now. And look at this while we're talking. There are two new little microphones at the front of this camera, which is great for anyone who wants to vlog, but since I'm more towards photography, I'm gonna talk more about that aspect of the camera. In terms of buttons, we've got a few updates here where our back buttons now have that little switch between photo, video, and SNQ that is extremely helpful and intuitive. So if you're a hybrid shooter and you need to go from photo to video, just switching that little guy right here takes 2 seconds and it works marvelously. Honestly, it's something I wish I had on my A1 or A7S III, but it's been on all the recent cameras. So yeah, maybe one day if I change. Now, we've got the red button right here for the rec, which is a lot easier to access than it used to be. And we've got a little wheel just at the back in order to control your aperture, for example. The one thing I've been missing while shooting here in the street was this little joystick to move my focus point. Now we can do it with the pad or we can do it with the wheel, but I do like that little joystick, and I gotta say this viewfinder is extremely cute. So yeah, overall it's a cute camera body. It feels nice in hand. It is small, compact. It takes a normal SD card, and it doesn't have dual memory card slot because this is not a camera that is designed for professionals per se. Okay, this could be a great B-roll cam, but I wouldn't use it as my primary camera if I was shooting, just because I like to double back up all my footage. And last but not least, the most important, the flip screen. If you remember, the 6600 had a flip screen, but it would come out at the top, which meant if you had anything on top, it wasn't a great idea, especially for those who want to vlog. But now you've got a real proper flip screen, which means you can have a microphone here and you will be able to see yourself. It's a proven tool that everyone loves. Honestly, the flip screen is great whenever you're trying to get special angles. Now let's talk about the shooting experience, because I got to try it in the streets of LA, and honestly, there's a few cool things that you need to know. When it comes to the performances of the camera, let's talk first about the autofocus, because I think this is literally the strongest point right now. It felt like having the A7R5 with the new AI autofocus, and that was absolutely incredible. Honestly, it was picking up the different objects super easily. I wish I could show you, but I didn't really record the screen that much. It is a camera that you will never have to think about when it comes to autofocus. This felt like my A1, it felt like the A7R5, and this is beautiful. So you can tap here to change which subject you want to detect. You can go between butterflies, animals, insects, birds, planes, cars, trains. There is still not a mode that will recognize exactly everything at once. You still have to decide on it, which is not an issue. And in terms of autofocus, you can tap also to focus on your screen, which was great. And one thing that changed also is the menus. The menus are on camera are pretty cool, with a lot of functionalities like swiping up and down to access new type of menus, or on the side, and I find it actually extremely intuitive and helpful. If you think about your phone, this is kind of where we're going towards, where the back screen is actually as helpful as the phone, where you can access a lot more menus just by swiping your finger around. So when you're shooting, it's actually great to have all that very handy, and it allowed me honestly to not think too much when I was taking photos. Now I will say I was getting a little frustrated sometimes just because I didn't have the little back wheel, and that's only my thing because I'm not used to doing the touch focus as much as with my phone, for example. So whenever having camera in hand, I just like to have everything very analog, or like having the ability to touch everything. And back screen look great, super bright for me, and the viewfinder is tiny and super cute, but it still allows you to review the photos when you're on the field. This camera's autofocus felt as good as any of my other camera, which is to say a lot, honestly, and it is kind of impressive. Now I want to talk about the colors, the resolution, and why I wouldn't get an APS-C, but before that, have you printed your photos? This is a serious question, because if you want to progress as a photographer, you need to be able to visualize and see your photos in a different environment, not just through your digital screen. And in order to help you do that, I partner with Whitewall to offer you a special discount for your next prints. Whitewall is a high quality print that I've been using for years, not only for myself, but also for my clients, and so have a lot of my photographers friends. Personally, I love printing acrylics and on fine art paper because it allows me to display it on the wall and it always looks great. And on top of that, recently I started printing calendars for myself and my family on a high quality paper, which looks absolutely awesome. So let me invite you to print your next work. With Whitewall, there is a special discount code in the description, and thank you so much, Whitewall, for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back to our camera. So in terms of colors, those colors are exactly the same as I would say as on the A7R5, and the white balance felt very similar. I did not get the chance to put it side by side, but in terms of user experience, honestly, it was the exact same feel. So if you're looking for the latest color science, white balance science, I think you won't be disappointed with this camera. I feel like it's kind of hard to say anything negative nowadays on those cameras. So it really comes down to how you feel, how much space you want to take in your bag, and how you want to shoot. What kind of camera feels good in hand, and what kind of lenses are you able to put on this. I've tried the 1655 f2.8 on this camera, which is a great equivalent to 2470, and also I've tried the new 7200 f4, and honestly, with the APS-C sensor, that went really far, and it was kind of super cool to shoot with that. I found it super fun and entertaining to just be able to zoom in that much, which would be awesome for wildlife photographers, for example, or sport photographers who don't want to have a full frame camera, but when they use the APS-C, so that they already crop in their image a lot while keeping the benefits of that long lens. Now, there is something I didn't mention. We have 26 megapixel for the photos, and you can shoot in 4K in 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, and in 4:2 10-bit, which is really impressive. You literally got everything that you could imagine and want in this camera, which I think is pretty impressive and pretty cool from Sony to let us use it. But I will tell you, the biggest question is always, should you get a APS-C camera or full frame? And I asked you that question at the beginning, maybe you answer. If you didn't, please do so right now, because how can I say this? I personally believe that you can get a full frame camera for the same price of those APS-C cameras. And in many circumstances, that might be a better option, especially if you're trying to have shallow depth of field, if you're trying to have a lot of bokeh, your full frame sensor will make a difference. Now, if you're trying to have depth of field with low light, the APS-C sensor might be better. And also, if you're trying to have that 1.5 cropped in effect on that 7200, it can also be an awesome thing. Suddenly your camera, it turns into a 100 to 400 millimeter zoom. So to conclude, it's gonna be up to you, honestly. It's gonna be completely up to you, and I will recommend you to try it out. If you already have an APS-C camera from Sony, this could be a great upgrade. But if you're on an A7S II, A7S III, well then I don't think this is a camera for you, because you're already full frame. I feel that it would be a step back to go back to APS-C. Again, it would depend on your circumstances. This is a camera that is very compact. Also, you could throw it in your bag with a little pancake. It wouldn't take any space. But let me know what you think. And with that being said, thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one.